What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Mindset Mutiny, and I am your host, Mike Ivanov. What's up, everybody? Listen, today, we're going to do whatever I want to do. I've got no script, nothing to follow. I feel like I want to kind of do more of that, right? Just kind of talk about what's going on in my week, what I'm doing, what's working, what's not working, some things of that nature. I do still love getting on here and yelling at a motherfucker or two for sure. Definitely a favorite pastime of mine. But, if you listen to the podcast and you've been following, these are messages to myself. This is the talk that I, do one-on-one in the mirror. And we'll do a whole separate discussion on discussion in the mirror. And just so you guys all know, I do have full conversations with myself in the mirror, and you can laugh it up, or you can try it yourself, see what kind of result it delivers. But anyway, so today and, over the last 5 weeks, I've been on a really deep training block. I have a 20-mile trail race coming up September 7th, if I recall correctly. So I've been deep in prep for that, really kind of canceling out all the noise, stopping with all the distraction, trying to keep off my phone as much as possible, but more importantly, flirting with burnout. And I don't want to get too much into that just yet, but that's kind of what we're going to talk about today as far as the podcast goes, is flirting with burnout. But today being a recovery day for me, I'd like to talk about that first. And the best way to combat burnout is to take a full day, right? 1 day out of 7 to recharge mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I'm not the best at this, okay? And over the last couple years, I've learned what burnout looks like. I've learned how to face it. I've learned how to delay it. I've learned how to recover from it. So when I hear a lot of people out there struggling with it, I feel like I can help in a big way. But let's just talk about today. And I feel like I'm going to do this more in the future. I just want to talk about what's going on week to week. All right. And then if I get some, golden nuggets in there, I'll mix those in and share that. I want to try something different. I don't have anybody asking me to do this. But I have had some people reach out to me, and some of the guys I've been coaching, we've been talking about burnout. So let's get after it. So I woke up this morning. It's a Sunday morning. And, as usual, pretty fucking smoked. And it's supposed to be a recovery day, but I have to get some mileage in. So I have some weekly mileage requirements that I have to hit. It's been about 15 to 16 miles a week. On top of that, which is making it difficult, is, I'm doing jiu-jitsu twice a week. But just recently, Kyle and I have decided to get to jiu-jitsu about an hour early. So we'll get there an hour early, and we'll train one-on-one with each other and the coaches. So Ethan and Dave will show up, and we'll get some one-on-one coaching going on, kind of talking about our game, where we're getting stuck, where we're struggling, where I can't pass somebody, where somebody's coming and passing me and smashing me, trying to kind of work on my game a little bit. Ethan brought up some great points about, I seem to be able to take people's backs pretty well. And that's something we're going to incorporate into my game. So, focusing on running and jiu-jitsu has been tough. Lifting has taken kind of a back seat due to recovery reasons, but I can tell you, the body is really loving jiu-jitsu. It's really starting to change. I'm keeping the calorie counts up because of the running and the recovery. But on top of the running, now I've amped up jiu-jitsu, right? So at the beginning of the year, right, I was doing jiu-jitsu once a week. I was lifting, and I wasn't really running a ton. And then, I come into May, I start to ramp my running up. And then we get a little bit more into jiu-jitsu. Coach comes to me and says, hey, listen, I think you need to do it twice a week. I'm like, great. Not something I really wanted to do. But, when asked, I always oblige. And I know that if I want to get better, I need to obviously ramp up the intensity. So then I started into 2 days a week, right? And then running, 3 to 4 days a week. And now I've added an extra 45 minutes to each class on the front end with training. So I'll do it twice a week. So we're about an hour and 45 minutes each time. So whatever an hour and 45 minutes times 2 is for you mathematicians, you can fucking tell me what that is. But that's about what I'm doing right now. And the run-in's hitting up to about 16 to 17, 18 miles a week. Anyway, so just ramping that up so I can be prepared for the race, 20-mile trail race coming up in September. So recovery and burnout is a real thing. On top of that, right, you say, all right, that's a lot of physical activity, but there's also a whole mental portion as well, right? So I am, going to work, right? Got a corporate job, which, whatever, say what you want. Could be 60 hours a week, we'll just call it. A lot of responsibility. So there's a mental kind of burden there. And then on top of that, I've got 6 full-time clients right now that I'm coaching. And that's going unbelievable. That's really filling my tank. I'm having a great time with that. I love seeing young men making some serious progress, watching them address their doubts, fears, and insecurities. So that's been really, really great. But you only have so much energy every day, right, when you start your day out. And that's why it's really important that you say no to things that don't really add to the mission, right? So my mission is continued growth. My mission is to continue to help others, lead myself so I can lead others, raise inner excellence in others, right? So that takes a lot of effort. So I have to be very careful with where I kind of use my time. So I'm getting off track here. So today, woke up tired, just like everybody else, right? I don't want to run, but you know what? I got some miles to hit. I got to get out there. So put my shoes on, head out, right? So I'm in Essex. I'm taking a nice run through Essex, heading down near Essex Falls. So I head out. It's warm, about 75 degrees, and it starts to kind of mist a little bit. Turns into a little bit of a rain, but it was just an amazing run, right? So a short run for me, 4 miles. Just needed to kind of check off the box there and finish up with the weekly mileage. But I took a new route, and I really enjoyed it. It was extremely wooded, and then it would pop out by the ocean, which was really great. Hadn't been on the road before, so I enjoyed it. Getting my new shoes broken in, which was real nice. But my feet are all banged up from jiu-jitsu on the mat. I got a bunch of mat burn all over my feet. So what's funny is, like when you're running, you typically get upset when you get a blister or something like that. But my feet have just been so beat up since I started jiu-jitsu that I just have open cuts and open, I don't say open sores. They're not open sores, but they're open burns from the mat. So I've just been used to walking around with a bunch of foot pain all the time. And I got a toe that's broken too. So my toe next to my little toe, it looks like a little mini sausage, man. I'm looking at it right now. This fucking thing is so swollen. But that was not a running injury. That was a jiu-jitsu injury. So I got this little sausage hanging on over here off my foot, and just running with that can be challenging. But dude, I'm having a great time. And really why I say that is I've gotten so used to the pain that now it doesn't even really matter. Give me all the blisters you want. I'm just gonna fucking keep moving. So it's all a perspective sort of thing. But anyway, my run was great. Finished up my run. Got home here, and I had some things I had to take care of. Most of you know, is Sunday for me is a time for kind of reset. I think I've gone over my routine Sundays. I've talked about the long run. I've talked about the farm, talked about head to the coffee shop and journaling. So pretty much all that stuff happened today. I headed over to the coffee shop, Little Wolf Coffee in Ipswich, probably one of the best places I've been. But, been going there for a while, so I've gotten to know a lot of the people there, the people that work there and some of the customers, right? So I've built a little community in there, which has been so great. I can walk in there and be in a bad mood, and I can leave there feeling great because the people in there are looking at me, and they know my baseline. They know how upbeat I usually am. So if I need some energy, they give it to me. But that's because I've been giving them energy every time I walk in there. And that's important for me to state that because that's something that you can do in your daily life. Probably talk about that further because wherever you can go, you can build a community. But it's on you to do so, right? And everybody kind of wants to get in and out of places and not really enjoy what's around them. But I got to tell you, and you'll hear me say this again and again, people are the medicine. And I have finally realized that. So that's kind of how I move through life right now at this point in time. So anyway, sat down, had a cortado, great coffee. It's all roasted right on site. Actually, just across the parking lot, they have a second building where they do all the roasting. And did some really good journaling today. Was kind of plotting the course for the next couple of months. Been working on a lot of projects. So that's been taking up a lot of my time. So went from there over to the farm. Saw the donkeys today and all the ducks. A couple of the guys tried to escape over to the clam box. I know I've mentioned that before, but these ducks will cross quite a busy road and then head over to try to grab some clams and French fries from the restaurant across the street. So kind of funny anyway. Excuse me. So anyway, I saw them, and then I kind of headed over to see the donkeys. So a couple of ears of corn for the donkeys. They were in great spirits. You know, it's kind of sad because one of the donkeys passed away, and I've been feeding that donkey since 2020. So they got a new one now, which is it's a rare donkey, which I'm not too well versed on donkey collecting, but apparently it's a rare donkey, which is all rescue. All the animals are rescued there too, so it's really great. But anyway, headed over there, got to my eggs. Sorry, I got a little cough here. Trying not to ruin the whole podcast here with a cough, but might have to take a break for some water here in a second. So I'm at Northern Lights Farm, and I know I don't really share that too much because I don't want anybody to know where it is because it's so special. But I've been on like a duck egg kick. They have duck eggs there, and they are the best hard-boiled. So you hard-boil about 10 minutes, and they don't smell at all, right? Like a lot of hard-boiled eggs smell, chicken eggs, right? But these duck eggs, they're huge, and when you hard-boil them, the center kind of stays a little oozy, right? Because it's such a big egg. So 10 minutes, boom, hard-boil them. And then you get a runny center out of them for the rest of the week that you're eating them. But I got to tell you, I'm on a duck egg kick. And probably going to stay that way for a while, to be honest. Quite enjoyable. So give me a second here. All right, so I'm back here. So I had to grab the water before I start coughing again. A lot of pollen out there, so kind of running can cause me some issues. I haven't figured out a way to get around that, but that's what we're dealing with right now, stuffy nose and some pollen indigestion. I went blueberry picking yesterday too, so that probably didn't help me out too much. So anyway, head over to the farm, finish that up, and then I stop at the butcher shop. So I got my farm fresh eggs for the week, and I head over to the butcher shop, see what I can grab. I usually end up getting about 14 burgers. I'll cook those off on the grill. So I use a flat top griddle, and I'll pack them in containers of 2, and that's how I'll kind of approach my meals for the week. Now that's only good for about 3 to 4 days, so you got to be kind of careful there. You don't want to have any food spoil, but I hate wasting food. So I used to get about 18 burgers, but I'd end up with like 1 or 2 extra. End up wasting them, so that's a bit of a problem for me. But anyway, ended up getting home and took my wife over to Woodman's. Had a couple lobster and clam lunch, which is super outside of my kind of character. I guess doesn't fit my character, right? A little fried food, but Devin's been wanting to go since we moved here, so head over to Woodman's. Got a lobster, some Ipswich fried clams, and now this brings me to now where we're sitting here. I got to meal prep a little bit here, but let's get going and discuss and burnout, right? So my entire last couple years has been flirting with burnout. Sitting there dancing with the devil, I guess is what you could say. So a couple months ago, I had pushed the farthest I could and have before. I put myself in bed for 3 days. I ignored all the warning signs. So what's interesting is when you really kind of dig into burnout, it's not just like about being tired. It's a slow collapse. Kind of lose ground day by day. And now everybody has a different, like, let's just look at it like a gas tank. Everybody's gas tank is, let's just say everybody, well, you can't say that because everybody doesn't have the same amount of gas. It's a bad example. The point being is that people are on the journey. They're on a little bit of a different journey than others, right? So some people have, well, we'll say bigger gas tanks than others, right? So you can't compare my gas tank to somebody who just started working out, right? Or somebody who, has only been doing this for a couple of years. This has been something I've been focusing on for, 5-6 years now. And, obviously before that, I played hockey and did things of that nature. So I'm no stranger to, pushing that kind of that envelope. But I don't want to get it like confused because this kind of needs to apply to everybody. I need to at least make it apply to everybody. So we all have different size gas tanks, and we also have different size engines, right? So some of us burn more gas than others to kind of do the same work. Now, what I need to be clear on is there's a difference between being tired and being burnt out, which is a hard differentiator because a lot of people will want to like make the excuse that they're burnt out when they're actually not burnt out. They just need to continue pushing. So I have kind of flirted with this for so many years, especially in the last 2 years. I've really been paying attention to it and tracking it. There's a major difference. And I will break down kind of the symptoms of how it attacks me when I'm burnt out. But, I used to think that I was unstoppable, right? I thought that the more effort, the more I would grind, the more I would push would get me there. But the problem is that same fire that fuels like the push is the same fire that will burn you to ash if you're not careful. So burnout is very, very sneaky. It kind of creeps into your life. And by the time you see it, it's kind of too late. And that's been what I've been kind of dealing with, right? So I'll get an idea that I'm burnt out, and then my mind will rationalize and say, no, you're not burnt out. I keep pushing. And I will. And then I'll get over that first stage or whatever, and we'll get through it. And then I'll come up to another symptom of burnout, and I'll push through that. And then I'll come up with another symptom of burnout, and I'll push through that. And then before you know it, you're in bed for 3 days, or you're taking a week off, or, you've been a complete nasty asshole for the past 2 weeks while you're dealing with this shit, right? So for me, burnout is a super sneaky little fucker. It really is. And it's obvious, sometimes obvious to the people around you, but not obvious to you. So the reason I say that is I have some people around me that will, be like, Mike, I'm not surprised that you're tired or that you're telling me that you're burnt out. And again, I don't really use those words. I never really use the word burnt out, and I rarely use the word tired. But when I use the word tired, it's a huge signal to me that like, hey, dude, something's wrong. As soon as that word comes out of my mouth, I need to kind of really keep an eye on that. Excuse me. So the way it shows up in my life, the first issue is my mood shifts. So I'll be like at the end of the day, and I'll be at home after work and after coaching, whatever. I'll be sitting on the floor stretching. And I'll feel like my patience start to fade. My wife will be talking to me and, just trying to tell me how her day is, or trying to talk to me about something that she read or whatever. And I find that I can't even listen. And I find that I start to get anxious just like having to listen. So that tells me that I've kind of have no capacity left for anything that day. Now, the old me used to try to push through that. I would kind of stay up, try to ride that mood out, see if I can make it better. But it's like 7:30 at night when this is happening. Now I just get up and go to bed. So that's the first like signal, is a mood shift. So anybody that is out there pushing it needs to be conscious of the mood. And I always kind of register that every day. I make sure kind of like a self-check, right? Kind of run through like the check sheet, you know? And mood doesn't always matter, right? Like, so I don't want you to think because your mood isn't a mood of like motivation and wanting to get out there and do all these things that you're burnt out. Doesn't mean that. I have so many different moods throughout my, my day. But this like one particular feeling I've been able to identify as the first signal. All right. So don't think that, oh, my mood's off today, I must be burnt out. That's fucking bullshit. And to be honest with you, if you're not like filling your day and you're sitting on the couch, you're scrolling on Instagram, you're doing this shit, you ain't fucking burnt out. Like, let's not play games. Okay. This actual episode is for people that are pushing it as hard as possible. Okay. They're coming up empty at the end of the week. They're feeling fucking smoked. Okay, that's what this is for. If you're just kind of cruising through life and you're feeling comfortable, well, like I always say, shut this shit off. And maybe you already shut it off. So that'd be a good thing for everybody if you're a fucking faker. But anyway, mood shift, number one to pay attention to. Second is lack of patience. So I'll be going through my day and, small little issue will come up. And it'll be a complete fucking... Like it'll want me to, I want to have a meltdown, right? Of course I don't. But I see, oh wow, wait a minute. That was something simple. Why is my patience wearing thin, right? And then I will have earlier that week recognize the mood shift. And then I see the lack of patience come in. And that can come in anything, right? It also shows up in like, so I have like these little micro routines that I have, which are important because what I do is I'll build these routines. And then I'll monitor the routine to make sure the routine's getting done. And when the routine isn't getting done, then I know, all right, like I got to back into what that is. So I have this one particular one so I have all these vitamins. I prep my vitamins for 14 days. And then I prep like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10 protein shakes. I'll prep them. So I have like these little containers that I fill up with like I'll do my protein, my collagen, my L-glutamine, and my creatine, and I'll put it all in like a little container. And what that does is that helps me get out of the house faster in the morning, so I'm not opening up like 9 or 10 different things, right? So I'll do that. But like when you come to like the last protein shake and it's gone, and then you got to re-prep these 11 or whatever, these 10 or 11, you may think that sounds easy. And it is. Very simple task. But there are times where that seems like the most monumental problem, right? Where it's so difficult to do that task. And that's how I kind of pick up on like where my burnout is, what my level of like energy is, right? So this is such an easy task to literally add 5 components to one container. Very, very simple. 10 or 11 times in a row, whatever. Okay. Or my vitamins that, I just got to open a bunch of vitamin bottles and sort them out into, 14 pill containers, right? Sounds easy. But I've noticed that when I'm close to burnout or I'm dealing with a lack of recovery, I want to cry. Literally feels like I want to cry having to do that. No joke. That is what burnout starts to look like, when those small tasks become monumental. But I use that as a signal, right? So like I said, I have these little routines that I use to try to like keep an eye on myself. And those things have happened over time, just trying to figure out, first of all, it started with how can I be more efficient? Then it was like, all right, nobody wants to open 12 or 13 pill bottles before they go to sleep. So of course I have to prep that, right? If I'm going to be successful at taking my vitamin stack all the time. But now I've used it to detect like issues, right? So when I put the containers on my bar top and they sit there for a day or two, I'm like, oh man, like shit, like I should be doing that. And then I'm like, all right, why am I not doing that? Oh, that's right, because I'm starting to approach some level of lack of patience, lack of, motivation. I'm running on fumes, all right? So then I'll say, all right, listen, now we got to ramp up sleep. There's always a response to some of these triggers, right? So the mood shift. First thing is I just get in bed, right? Most things can be fixed with more sleep, but none of you guys want to sleep. In fact, most of the time when I talk to people about sleep, I get I'm good on 6 hours. I hear that from guys at very high levels, and I just kind of laugh and I'm like, yeah, dude, that's great. I'm glad you're so fucking tough and you can function on 6 hours of sleep. Imagine how good you would be on 8 to 9 hours of sleep is what I usually say to them. And I get a look, I can tell you, and I will promise you that most things I am so bought in on is sleep. I've been studying sleep for the last 4 or 5 years. I can sleep the best, and I used to never be able to sleep. But I will tell you, the more sleep I get, the more stress I can handle, the more I can perform, the better my brain functions, all of that. Sleep is the multiplier. So when I hear somebody tell me, oh yeah, I only need 6, I'm like, all right, great, I can run you into the ground. It's exactly what goes through my head. I laugh, okay? So if you're out there and you're talking that same shit, that you can get by on 6 hours of sleep, or, you start getting that FOMO that you want to stay up later, fuck that, get in bed. It's the best thing you can do to combat burnout. It's the best thing you can do to promote recovery. It's the best thing that you can do to set yourself up for success, okay? So what else happens when I pass through, so I've done this obviously many times and I still do because sometimes it's required. Don't necessarily always do what I say, right? Or don't really do what I do, I guess is what I should say. Sometimes when you push through the mood shift, you push through the lack of patience, you can end up sleeping 9 to 10 hours, waking up and still feeling exhausted. Okay, that's the third sign, which is one I still push through, okay? Because I'm like, all right, this is just a couple days. I got to get a couple more days of good sleep, and then I should be good, all right? Not recommended, but something that I would say a lot of high performers do. They can push through that. Just another sign. I can tell you that there's times where I'll lay in bed sleeping. I'm asleep, but the quality of the sleep is not good, and I can feel it, and like the body is just unsettled. The mind is asleep, but the body's still kind of stirring around, if that makes any sense. That's another sign that you're approaching burnout, okay? The fourth one for me is body pain and like a restlessness. So after I experienced the mood shift, the lack of patience, the exhaustion from, even after getting a deep sleep, now these things are still going on. Then you stack on the body pain and the restlessness, right? So just overall, everything hurts, everything. And if you've ever experienced it, you know exactly what I'm saying. It's like a deep aching pain, and you can't really figure out why. You'll roll your body out, you'll hit the massage gun, you go to the chiropractor, you hit up, hit up your acupuncturist, and nothing really fixes it. Okay, so your body is screaming at you and just trying to tell you, like, hey, dude, pay attention. I keep pushing through that. And then what happens to me is I'm feeling all these things, and I'll sit down with a friend of mine named Mike, and I'll explain to him that I don't feel good. And I'll use the word tired, and I never use the word. So that's another signal to myself, like when I use the word tired, dude, you need to start to back it down. But I don't. So then he sits there with me, and we run through everything I've done in the last couple weeks, and then he goes, yeah, so are you surprised you feel this way? And we've been going through this fucking drill. I mean, if you ask him, he'd probably say years. If you ask me, I'd probably say once in a while. But it's a helpful perspective, right? And it's another sign that's like, hey, dude, back it down. Maybe take a couple days off completely. Do nothing. Try to get as little steps as possible. But I guess the ego wants to push through. So I push through, okay, by rationalizing why I feel this way. And then the last and final issue for me is a lack or a loss of complete motivation and complete pleasure. Now, I never really look for motivation. I don't really give a fuck about it because we all know it's kind of fleeting, right? So, but you lose discipline too, right? When this happens to you, you just don't want to do anything. Okay, you want to sit around and swipe on your phone all day long, and you don't want to move. So the loss of motivation, the loss of pleasure for things that I do. I've lost pleasure for doing this podcast. I've lost pleasure for running. I've lost pleasure for lifting. Haven't lost any pleasure for jiu-jitsu yet. I'll let you know when that day happens. And maybe we just need to do it more so that it does happen. But those are the signs. Those are the signs that you need to be aware of. So the mood shift, the lack of patience, the exhaustion after a deep sleep, the overall body pain and restlessness. Then you start to rationalize away the signs. You start kind of lying to yourself, trying to wonder why versus looking at what you've actually done and understanding that it's worn yourself out, right? And then the lack of motivation, the lack of pleasure, a feeling of wanting to do nothing. And then that's when I end up in bed for 3 days. Body is completely tapped the fuck out. The mind pushed it all the way through. And, well, the body will get the rest. It'll make you rest. Okay, I'll get like down to the point where I start getting flu symptoms in the middle of the summertime, right? That's how I know that I have pushed too far. But sometimes, to be honest with you, and this will sound like some real psycho shit, is I'm pretty proud of myself for being able to do that. I'm pretty proud of myself for being able to push through all of the warning signs, push my body past what it can do, push my mind past what it can do, and then end up in bed for 3 days. Shit, I guess it's not great, but it's pretty fucking awesome to know that you can do it. All right? So all of you need to know that when you're tired, you can still keep pushing. And listen, don't create these signs because you want to be burnt out, okay? I don't want to be burnt out. In fact, that's the only reason I've figured this shit out, is because I've never wanted to get to that point, so I start kind of monitoring the moods. But, don't use this as a fucking Band-Aid, right? So anyway, a lot of people forget that on top of the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual can also break you in that way, right? So that's why I always talk about being very deliberate with your time and being very intentional, okay? I say no to a lot of things, and I will continue to say no to a lot of things. And it's because I have to protect my energy, because I have so many things to do that if somebody wants me to go to a party, I'm probably going to say no. I'm not going to fucking barbecues. I'm not doing it. It's a waste of my fucking time, right? I don't want to put myself in a place where, I'm going to have to drink some fucking alcohol. I'm going to have to talk to people that, I don't know, aren't drinking the same Kool-Aid as me. I'm going to be, I guess I could just say I could be running. I could be doing jiu-jitsu. I could be reading. I could be studying. I could be helping my clients. So if it's not part of the mission, it's not going to fucking happen. All right. And that's how you also avoid burnout, because a lot of people schedule themselves like crazy. I look at some buddies' schedules of like what they're doing on the weekends, and it's all they're doing all weekend is pleasing everybody else. Going to this party, going to that party, hanging out over here, hanging out over there, doing this, doing that. And it's like, bro, like what are you doing to get better on the weekend? Or what are you doing to like help yourself? Are you meal prepping? Are you setting yourself up for the win? And it's like most of these guys are doing all this shit on the weekend, and they enter the week completely fucking smoked because they've served everybody else instead of serving themselves, right? You can't help others until you can help yourself. It's the same reason that on the airline they tell you to put your own fucking oxygen mask on first, okay? You got to be able to help yourself first. So again, to alleviate or avoid the burnout, or at least set yourself up to win, you got to say no. It's that simple. So there are some things that you can do to combat this burnout, and I talked about them as we entered this podcast today. And listen, the farm isn't going to be for everybody. A run isn't going to relax everyone. Okay, so you need to find your own routine, but it needs to be something that brings peace. and you need to be intentional about your recovery. So on days that you're recovering, and I have found that 1 day a week is great for me, but if you're just getting started, and you need to take a couple days a week, that's completely cool. But like a rest day isn't fucking boozing on the weekend, right? All right. A rest day is like sitting on the couch, rolling out your muscles, going out to the farm and getting some healthy food for the week, reading a book, sitting with people that you love, right? Going to the farm, pet some animals, feed some animals, do something like that, right? Go to the beach, look at the tidal pools. Whatever works for you is what you need to do. But I will tell you, I think a lot of people need to get back to things that they did as a kid that they loved, and that will kind of rejuvenate them. But burnout's real. I hate to admit it, and I'm sorry I've been coughing here, but excuse me. Burnout's real. I want to get on here and talk about it. Send me a message if you have any questions. I have been learning about burnout for years now, and I have a good handle on it. And I've been able to get a good handle on it because I have good people around me that I discuss it with, compare notes, look at what they're doing, look at what I'm doing. It's all about finding like-minded individuals that you can compare your journey with. If I had not had other people like me to talk about this with, probably wouldn't have progressed on it as quickly as I have. But I'm really good at keeping that motherfucker away now. Really good at flirting with burnout. In fact, it becomes some like a dangerous dance that I like to do. I like to kind of see how far past the edge I can go, and then how I can use sleep, diet, mindset to recover from it. So super cool shit. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. But again, thanks for your time today. And I think in the future, we're just gonna go week to week, talking about what's going on. So for the rest of this week coming up, I've got a busy one. A lot of running, a lot of jiu-jitsu. It's a busy week for my clients. There's some guys with some big things coming up, and I think we've got a few W's showing up this week for the fellas. So we will catch you all later. And again, please subscribe, share with anybody that needs to hear it. Love you all.